Well, let's do a reconstruction, and I'm going to preamble this by saying that if you do not know that you are the author of your life, of what happens to your life, then let me tell you today, the authorship of your future, unless of course you run into some bad luck or some accident, but the author of our lives, my life, is based on the decisions I make. It's based on the actions I take. It's based on the activities of my mind, which I know, and you and I know, that what you feed into your mind ultimately will become some action in the future. So I'm preempting this by saying that if you at this point do not know or do not realize that there are people out there who are tricking you and lying to you and fooling you around, if you don't know that, the worst part of this is if you don't know you're being fooled, you're being tricked, that's just a person who is a slave and never know that there is freedom out there. Well, this is the voice of freedom. This is the voice of reason. I'm begging you to think different. I'm begging you to look at things different because there's freedom out there. You do not need to be guided by some preacher or some book given to you by the colonizers. You don't need to be fooled by the politicians of today so that you think that a politician is supposed to change your life. No, sir, no, ma'am. Your life is dictated and directed by your decisions. There is no government that I know of, and there is no individual that I know of that would say, because of this government, I'm a better person. Not one. So we need to stop this fooling of each other and reconstruct the way we've been thinking, the way we've been reasoning. We have to make a change today, my friends. There is no other time to make this change. Right now, I'm coming to you, letting you know that the days, the reasoning of yesterday, the way we were conducting ourselves yesterday, our reasoning, our thinking, our behaviors of yesterday must change as Africans or as Kenyans. It must change. There is no future for our African children if we continue in this path of depending. So like right now, if I listen to the politicians and our Kenyan people, I mean, in particular, in this case, Kenyan people, you would hear the way we are all pointing fingers at the government. Whether it was Uhuru's government or Ruto's government or whichever government. This is why I know for a fact that we are a confused people. On one hand, a government is trying to secure resources to help you in terms of facilitate some services. Like I said, the government will never come to your rescue. It's supposed to facilitate a few things. If you have some products, some produce from the farms you'd like to get to the market, you would like to get them to the production place. Yes, the government can facilitate getting you better roads, but someone has to pay for taxes, right? The challenge that I've seen, and I see, and I continue seeing here, is we are all pointing at the government. At the same time, we do not want to pay for taxes. So I come to you, telling you the government not going to help you. I come to you to tell you that preachers not help you because we go from the government, we blame the government because we'd like for the government to do a thing or two to the point there our own people are directly begging for some help, some guidance from the government. Individually, it's never going to happen. The same is for you and I to literally expect a preacher or whatever the preacher is professing. He is coming to you, or she's coming to you as like a lawyer, to whom he is supposed to take your wishes to the judge. I mean, you have to sit back and think through this, my friends. You have to really genuinely ask yourself, why would you go to some man who was born just like you? He's from the same village just like you. He ain't got no super powers, nothing special on him. But you take your people and your children, you take yourself to go listen to a man read a book given to him. He is not the author of that book. I mean, at what point will you stop looking at the preacher as your redeemer? And at what point are you going to stop listening to this preacher as your redeemer? I mean, think about it, my friends. When did you say a prayer worked? When? Last I saw, we're burying our people left and right. I see prayers day and night. But nothing is changing. But you have people who are out there singing, you can't do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. We all say that, and I know that's true. I can't go keep doing the same thing over and over and expect the same result, right? I agree with you. If you've been doing farming, for corn farming, you're not getting any better. If you're doing the livestock kind of business and you're not doing any better, you likely probably need to change with the product or the crop or the livestock you have in the farm. You must change that. Because otherwise, you cannot keep doing the same thing over and over and be successful. Why don't we use the same analogy then? How do you continue praying night and day and nothing is changing? Why on one hand we want to say stop doing what you've been doing because it's not benefiting you? Remember, our president said you need to start planting avocados. Remember that? And we're all round up and messed up and whining and complaining. We're supposed to stay with the corn, mahindi, maize. Because he was saying stop doing the same thing over and over, because if you're not successful in that field or in that line, change. All right, I'm agreeing with him. But then why is he and you are still going to this preacher, praying? You don't have no proof or not one single prayer that worked. And you know why it's not working? It's because you're praying to the gods of Egypt. You're praying to the gods of the Germans, the Zeus. You're praying to Ra. You're praying to Aset. And these were allegories, man. This was astrotheology, where they were looking at the stars and they would give names to those stars. They would say, that star right there, we were going to call it Ra. We're going to call this one Assis. We're going to call this one Aset. We're going to call this one Zeus. These are just thoughts of philosophers who are trying to connect reality to potentially things that they don't know. And now you, Mr. and Mrs. African, you're depending on this written stuff. And you're genuinely closing your eyes, praying over and over, and you're not getting no result. And you don't want to change that. And I come to you and I'm begging you to say, look here, we got to change. We have to change. You must rise as an African. So you, African, I know you got to rise. We have to change our thinking. It starts with our mindset. Because beliefs leads to action. You believe that there is some supreme or some divine intervention that will come our way. Therefore, you won't do any action. You won't self yourself. You won't salvage your life. You won't make a move. You won't make a change. You'd rather go to church and listen to this dummy lie to you. Because it's that belief, what you feed into your head, that is directing where you go, where you put your resources, where you put your energy. You're refusing to say, wait, I didn't pray all these years. Nothing has changed. I don't have one single proof that this works. What this preacher is telling me, he never been there. He never seen none of that. I don't have any evidence of these people. You look at me. Start with even, what was that? This guy, Lazarus. You remember in the storybook of the Teletubby book that you think is so defined, Lazarus was resurrected from the dead, didn't he? I got to ask a very genuine question right here. If this person was resurrected, which means he has defeated death, all right, where is he? Where is this guy? If Jesus resurrected him and somehow he died again or he was killed, then what was the point of the resurrection? Hello? What I'm saying here is we are following ideas that were not written for you, African man. You gotta read that. I believe it's Matthew 24. I believe at chapter 29 or something like read that time within that area, where the Bible strictly is really alluding to this was written, or these stories were for that age, for those people. I'm talking about if it is that, look at me, listen and help me so I help you. If a letter is a letter to the Romans, why didn't he say a letter to the Kenyans? If a letter is letter to the Ephesians, letter to whoever up there in Europe or in the Middle East, if it's saying a letter to the Romans, how do you concord that and say it's to you, it references you? In Matthew, it's saying this shall not pass. This will come to pass before I die or before this happened. The book wasn't for you. These were stolen stories. I'm saying rise, meaning we need to wake up and change our mindset today, not tomorrow. We cannot keep continuing the same path, doing the same thing, and expect a different result. This is where I'm coming from, and I'm begging you. It needs to change. It needs to be different. You have to change, because religion, I'm telling you, my friends, religion is man-made. I say it's man-made, and it was written to conquer others, because it was the Gutenberg family that published the first Bible. Man, look, go back to even our own African tree in terms of family tree. If you don't believe in the scientists, you need to go back to a different universe. Look here, ignore that there is like, let's say you don't like science, right? But think about it this way. It's been found that there was bones of people who used to live in Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania millions of years ago, right? Follow me, please. If these people lived then, and if the Bible was first published by Gutenberg people, 1454, a mere 100 years, 1,000 years ago, give or take, what happened with the millions of years that have since passed? What happened? So now you're essentially saying, if you think the Bible is the Word of God, you're saying God sat still, ignored everything, didn't give a damn about anything, then suddenly came in and said, and came in with some selection. Or you are the chosen people. The chosen people. But these chosen people in the Middle East. This supreme being left the universe with billions of stars and planets and all of that. Left all of that, came down to just a particular people. And you say those are your people. Or that book is for you. this book was man-made. It was stories stolen. It was stories that were written by, first from the hieroglyphics in Egypt. And just like you would advance a story, people advance these stories. Why? For political and control, and to destabilize other nations. It is man-made because it was first published by the Gutenberg family. The one that you say King James, do you know who's King James? Mr. Stewart? A man who's been known or it's been written that he was an homosexual? Hello? So my point here, though, as much as it is fun to think through this, I'm saying religion is no education. Religion is not science. Religion is not new knowledge. Religion is superstitious and is based on faith. It is based on faith, and faith is a subset of knowledge. Wherein if you have knowledge, you can say, I believe in a thing. But it is the degree of how much you know or how much evidence you know that qualifies knowledge. So I can believe that I'm talking to you and I have some evidence that you exist because I've seen you before, because I've met you before. So I believe that you exist. This is why I'm recording this, because I've seen you, I've talked to you, I have big picture and video evidence. I still believe, because nobody has 100% guarantee that they know something. So I could believe that you are 99%, you exist 99%. But where you have this religious stuff is based on faith, and faith you're saying, I really don't know. If I knew better, I wouldn't have faith. Faith is where there is lack of evidence. You don't have no evidence, so therefore you're just gonna say, all right, I don't know who created the universe, but I believe there's somebody who created it, or something that created it. In this case, you have zero evidence. Therefore, you are basing on, now you're in the faith industry. You just believe, but you don't have evidence. And religion is superstitious beliefs, man, consolidated into rituals of some European and Middle East people, and then dogmatized into a book. These are people writing stories. Oh, I think I saw, or I heard this. Or you don't even know who is Mark, Luke, John, all of these people. You don't know their last names. Because it was stories written. Nobody knew this earth, man. People were just writing stories. Oh, I saw someone. Or there was a guy who was running against the Romans. And as the way Romans used to do, they would crucify you. And that man was named Yeshua, among others who were crucified. And when there's a rebellion, the government will always find ways to silence those rebellious people. But this person, or them people who were rebellious against the Romans, were saying they were the saviors. Here's why they were eventually, Constantine, around 300 AD, said, you know what, this movement of rebellious people is too strong. We need to distill them. We need to cool them down. You probably need to create a new constitution out of the stories that these people have. And you create a council called Council of Nicaea, and then 7 more councils. For 200 years, you're debating how you can create the best constitution to manage all of these people you've conquered. Therefore, you have to bring all these stories to consolidate into one dogmatized book called the Bible. What part of this don't you get, my friends? I'm trying to break it down for you. And I don't know if you're going to send this message to someone, because we need to help each other here. Religion is superstitious belief with no evidence. You cannot find not one single evidence of these people written in the Bible. Not one. How do you put your life and your trust in things that you don't have not one single evidence, my friends? How? We're telling you this was totally stolen. The Wazungus are not smart. They have been bamboozled too. But who is the leader in science? Who created the COVID vaccine and other medicines? You just don't want to say Mzungu? Same way you don't want to say this book given to us is the best book? Come on now. I am telling you, you follow these things. It's not me saying this. Go check it out. Unless you want to just believe because Mzungu tell you, then you have a sickness called Anglophilia, where you think anything coming from Europe is the best, is correct. You hear something from me, from this voice right here, you don't believe it. You don't want to believe this because it's an African talking to you. Oh, now, listen to how he's talking. Oh, he hates her. He is anti-Christ. I'm not anti-nothing. Show me that guy, I'll go talk to him. Otherwise, you're deluded. I'm trying to help you. If you cannot connect what we are talking about here, if you cannot connect what I'm talking about here to the miseries that we have as Africans, there is something wrong and you're not correctable. You're not correctable. I'm saying you're not correctable because this is clear cut. Just think for a second, my friends. Just for a minute. Ignore this voice talking to you. Think for a minute. A man lived millions of years ago. If this person was created, don't you think the creator would have written in stone how the creation was started? Do you really want to wait millions of years to come read some book published by some publisher up there in Germany? The Gutenberg Bible? Do you really want to wait for that? A book that doesn't even follow what science is saying? A book that says you are a second grade person. You're not first grade. A book that demeans you. I'm talking about if you read right now in Exodus chapter 21. Come on now. You African. Look, listen carefully right here. The Europeans never enslaved themselves. You know that, right? They went outside and enslaved others. If you read Exodus 21, let me find it right here, read it for you. It says, Exodus chapter 21, New International, and I don't give a damn about this international version. All of them is a piece of junk, but read, check it out. Chapter 21 says, these are the laws you are set before them. You are to set before them. Anyway, I'm talking about this is now the creator of the universe, the God, giving instructions on Hebrew servants. It says, if you buy you a Hebrew servant, he is to serve you for 6 years. Imagine buying a person. I'm talking about there's something wrong with you, African, man. This book is giving instruction on how to have a servant. It says, but in the 7th year he shall go free. All right, I'm going to jump ahead. It says, if his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons and daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and only the man shall go free. Look here, I'm just talking. And I'm telling you, we are a broken people. A book that you said is sanctified is the word of God is literally giving instructions on how a master, and I remember this, the slave owners were regarded as masters. Massa. I don't know if you've heard some people say massa. This book is telling Massa how to keep slaves. It is telling Massa how and who to let go after 7 years. Meaning, if this master keeps you a wife and you have children with that wife, when it's time for you to go, you are gonna go. According to this book, he'll keep your wife and your children. I'm not making this up. This is, go look it up. Exodus chapter 21. And yet your sweet baby Jesus came to fulfill these laws. He came to fulfill them. It didn't come to change. And the man was, according to the book, I don't believe he existed. According to the book, he came to fulfill, and he came with a sword to kill. That's the person you say, oh, is love. I mean, in your hierarchy, you say Jesus is God. And this man is coming with sword to kill. I mean, hello? Look here. I'm gonna stop on this because I don't know what to tell our people anymore. So ultimately, I'm gonna just say that if you are seeking truth, you have to subset truth with beliefs. Within these circles here is where you find knowledge. Truth has a lot of evidence. Beliefs, you could believe something with some evidence, but it's a subset. What I've insisted upon us to think right is that we need to wake up. If you're not for education, I don't know what you are for. Knowledge liberates. You only awaken if you have the knowledge. You have to do research and base your life in education. But if you want to hold on to your toys, as in these things that you believe that they're sanctified or somehow it's divine word of God, I call those toys. They were not for you, and if you want to hold them, of course, it's your right. I'm not in here to take your belief. Your belief is your belief. I'm just telling you, sometimes you could be convinced of a thing, but you actually edit the wrong way. My job here is to bring some light to the darkness. But if you believe you're in the light, that's fine. Just hold on to your toys. Just go ahead. It's your right. The Bible was the first superhero book. I mean, this is why our great-grandfathers, when they heard these super stories of a man walking on waters and miracles that have never been proven, that was their first superhero book. And that's why they fell in love with it. The Bible was the first known constitution on earth that encompassed many states or many neighboring states or countries around the Mediterranean Sea. Here is why that book has lasted that long. But if you read what is in it now, you know it's not for African, it's not for the entire world. It's a book full of hatred and filth and killing. Some of the verses that talk about outright sex and stuff is not for you. It's not, you couldn't even read some of those verses for your children. Could you? Could you read where there some soldiers were molested and raped a woman, an emperor walking out and finding that there's a concubine by the door, carries and gives that concubine to others? Would you let your child read none of that nonsense? Huh? But your preacher won't tell you that. Anyways, it was the first copyright, first superhero book. And then you had all the just chaos going on to include Michelangelo commissioned as a painter to paint slaves, the ones that you think were the 12 disciples. Nobody's seen none of these people. Not one. You don't even say, hey, Middle East was part of Africa. It was the east side of Africa. You're so scared you can't even tell that person, that preacher, no, man, this was Africa. And the disciples couldn't possibly have been that color that you see. if there were any disciples. I know there were soldiers who were rebelling against the Romans. You who call yourself a Roman Catholic, imagine that, an African sitting in Africa, in those corners, those dark belly corners of Africa, call himself a Roman. And nobody in Rome will say, oh, I'm a Kenyan, I'm a Tanzanian, or I'm from I'm Zanzibar, or whatever. None of them. You need to repatriate your mind, man. Liberation is now reconstruct this. And so Christianity is just a carbon copies of stories. These are copies of consolidated beliefs by the ancients. Just like you see here. These were the Egyptian gods. Again, as much as we like to base on these as the Egyptians were the originators of this stuff, it also follows that Egyptians didn't know any better either. How could they? These were made up stories, of course. They were looking at the stars and they would name those stars. And so the sun god was Ra. Even this new day baby Jesus born of a virgin, they had stories of the virgin stories. All of them. There is nothing new under the sun. All of these book things you read now were stolen stories. Someone just consolidated them so that all who are around that area could have one book to reference. That's why I said it was the first constitution. First constitution, and these were all copied from the hieroglyphics. The hieroglyphics are these carvings on the wall. Inside the pyramids. The tombstones. Thousands of years before the book was written. Like I said, I told you the Gutenberg Bible was published initially, 1454. That's about 600 years ago. 600 years ago is what you're holding on right now. Ignoring the pyramids. It's been said the pyramids are as old as 10,000 years ago. 10,000 versus 600 years. 10,000, they had these things you see here called hieroglyphics, where you had all the rules and laws, to include the laws of truth and justice. Where today you say, oh, you shall worship no God, you shall not do all of that stuff. Those were the things that the Egyptians had already ordered by the hieroglyphics. Long time ago. And you were given these stories because these stories were consolidated into one book. Because around the Mediterranean Sea, people were fighting, and the Romans had to establish a rule. And had to consolidate all these ideas. And then, the Egyptians had already had this right here. Carved them in stone. You can go and see the evidence of this. But you will never find evidence of any of the things said in the Bible. Because the stories were stolen by the Greeks. The Greeks used it, converted it, bettered the story, and then you have the Romans coming in and conquered all these places, and then rewrote the stories. The Germans went ahead and said, all right, let's go ahead and publish it. Then you have the molest and the rapist and the homosexual up there in Britain, named James, who you say, you African, I like to say now, King James, as though King James is your brother. No, my friends, it's time to get up. It's time to wake up. It's time to rise. Let's reconstruct this. So finally, I say unto you, empower your minds. Again, I repeat, reconstructing is empowering your mind. Today is the day to make sure you do right for you and by you. You have to empower your mind, just like you would do a computer. You have to power up that mind. And I'm giving you information that should power you up. Download or update your mind with new information. This information I'm giving you, some of the things that I've worked and dug everywhere, every corner to find this information. I've written a book here called Immortal Knowledge, A Message to the African Grassroots. Within this book and other books written by others who are before me or who will come after me, or even my brothers and sisters, I've written and they've given you that information. You just need to download it in your head and stop being a scared African. There is nothing wrong with seeking information. There is nothing wrong with questioning a book. Whether it's a Quran, whether it's a Bible, whether it's any book, there is nothing wrong with questioning. Go away from these superstitious beliefs. You gotta move on, because at the end of the day, you're the author of your life. You're the author of the direction of your life. You're the author of your life today, tomorrow, and in the future. It is you. This decision that comes your way, or the benefits of your life, or the success of your life, is directed by you. It's not gonna come from some other dude, some preacher, or some politician. It's coming from you. Be a truth seeker. Start with questions, not answers. You have to ask questions. In the world of academia, you do not start with the end. You start by just searching for truth. You seek truth. You fight and keep looking and keep knocking and opening all doors, if it means opening every page that of any book you can find, till you're well informed. Otherwise, you'll remain as a misinformed person. Again, I know as Africans, we were great. Once we were, and we will do it again. We are a great people. Otherwise, we have to remove the furniture that is in our minds and put new furniture in our mind. Remove the tribalism. Remove the fortified opposing views that is making us enemies of each other. If you're living next to another tribe, there is no need to still think of some other tribe being this or whatever. You probably need to speak one language, whether it can be English. You can't hate a people who speak English. You probably need to change your life, but that life, like I said, you have to alter it yourself and say, from now on, to avoid any questions for my African people, for my children, the children of my future, I'm going to start this way. I'm going to start talking in this kind of language. I'm going to update all the traditions that don't help me anymore and make a change. Because anyways, we've changed anyways. Our children now are rappers and all that stuff. There is no reason to just continue holding on to one ideology. Times change. We got to move on.